Good time today to everyone, to the olds and to the youngs. Drax is back in the studio and welcome back to another video. The version 3.0 has recently got underway, and so today I decided to make a guide on another incredible character that will also be in version 3.0. Despite being one of the best waifus in Genshin, Ganyu is also among the best main DPSs in whole game. And so today's guide is dedicated to her. So now let's not pull a cat by its nuts and let's begin. As a postscriptum to the intro part, I'd also like to say thanks to user NXFo. They left a comment on my guide on Zhongli with fair amount of critics, and they pointed out the weak points that I need to improve. I promise that I will do better on my guide on Ganyu, and so it's time to fulfill a promise. As usual, let's start by looking at Ganyu's variations in groups. In total, there are 3 different variations of Ganyu in which you can arrange her. Freeze variation, Melt variation, and last but not least, Support variation. First 2 variations are for main DPS Ganyu. The difference is that in Melt variation of Ganyu, you use Cryo element in elemental reactions in order to higher Ganyu's damage, whereas the Freeze variation relies on soul cryo damage. And everything is quite simple as well with the 3rd variation of Ganyu. All we need to do is deal as much damage as possible while Ganyu stays in the pocket. Ganyu has a huge arsenal of weapons available for her. Let's look at the best variants of them. Firstly, let's start off with the Freeze variation of main DPS Ganyu. Aqua Simulacra is currently the best variant for Freeze variation of Ganyu. The upper substat of the bow allows us to receive a lot of free crit DMG. Passive ability is also very good for us, as it allows to increase Wilder's damage by at least 20%. Polar Star takes 2nd place. We will be able to easily obtain bow charges, which will give us additional ATK. ATK is very valuable for us in Freeze variation, since we can't use Bennett. 3rd place goes to Thundering Pulse. The bow is good with its high ATK and a lot of crit DMG available in upper substat. However, the main problem of the bow is that passive ability will not bring anything good for our Freeze Ganyu. Amos bow takes 4th place. Ganyu's signature bow wasn't placed so low just because it's weak by itself. No. It takes 4th place just because it was overtaken by other strong bows. But despite being positioned in so-called midfield, Amos bow still carries a lot of value. High ITK in upper stat and of course passive ability are still valuable for Freeze variation of Ganyu and even for Melt. And of course it's the easiest among all 5-star bows to get for Freeze Ganyu. Prototype Crescent is best 4-star variant for Freeze variation of Ganyu. It may seem that Hamayumi might be better than Prototype Crescent for Freeze variation of Ganyu, but in fact, Prototype brings more value to us than Hamayumi. We need to bring up Ganyu for the required ATK, as we cannot worry about crit mass, and so Prototype Crescent will be able to do it. In 6th place we've got Hunter's Path. Crit rate is not required for us that much, ever since we will receive enough both crit rate and crit damage from artifacts. Passive ability also gifts us with 3 elemental mastery. However, it is not required for Freeze variation of Ganyu, ever since we don't use elemental reactions. Last but not least, in 7th place we have got Hamayumi. Its value is insignificant, ever since he can only give us a big percentage of ATK in stats. Up next, we've got the Melt variation of Ganyu. Let's take a look at the weapons that are available for her. The winner in this category for sure is Hunter's Path. Plus 12% of all elemental DMG bonus. For Ganyu it is Cryo DMG bonus. An effect that allows us to increase ATK per charged shot. It is also good. Both ATK and elemental mastery from passive ability are also valuable for us. Apart from that, we also need crit rate, which is luckily in upper substat of Hunter's Path. It will allow us to put a crown with crit DMG, and we will receive enough crit rate to satisfy our crit mass. 2nd place goes to Aqua Simulacra. Despite the fact that Hunter's Path gives us more useful bonuses, Aqua Simulacra is just too good, and it's still able to overcome other bows. Its abilities are just too good, and both passive and base ATK and upper substat are still unbeatable and unmatchable by other bows apart from Hunter's Path in Melt Variation for Ganyu. Amos bow finally makes its way to the top 3. Passive ability allows us to receive a lot of damage with charged shots. Before Hunter's Path and Aqua Simulacrum were added to the game, Amos bow was number 1 among all bows for Melt Variation of Ganyu. Polar Star settles down in 4th place. The main problem of the bow is passive ability. We will not always be able to receive charged shots that will increase our ATK. If you are able to fully reveal potential of Polar Star in this variation of Ganyu, then it will be equal to Amos bow. Thundering Pulse takes 5th place just because of its high base ATK and crit DMG available in upper substat. Passive ability of the bow does not work once again. Up next on the list, we've got Skyward Harp. Apparently this weapon is one of the most underrated as it gives us good burst of crit rate and crit DMG with high base ATK. Hamayumi is the best 4-star variant as it overcomes Prototype Crescent's power. It allows us to deal more damage with charged attacks when ult is fully charged. Prototype Crescent, in order to keep up with Hamayumi, must shoot into the weak spots of enemies. However, not all of the enemies in the Abyss have such weak spots, meaning that Prototype Crescent is becoming less powerful. Last but not least, we've got the support variation of Ganyu. We also need to have a look at weapons available in this variation, so we'll just quickly run through the list. Elegy of the End takes 1st place. It gives us good energy recharge, and passive ability allows us to increase our ATK and elemental mastery. Polar Star takes 2nd place, in case if we need our support Ganyu to deal at least some damage. Moon and the Stringless take 4th place, as their potential is literally equal. And in case if we need some energy recharge, we can use Gold Old Favonius bow. When talking about the artifact variants for all the variations of Ganyu, there is certainly something to choose from. We shall have a look at all of the variants possible that I would certainly recommend. We'll start off with Freeze variation, and its best option is 4-piece of Blizzard Strayer. It will give us plenty of crit rate and some cryo DMG bonus on top. This set is incomparable with any other variants, as it is just so good. For Melt variation, we have a more interesting situation, as we have different choices, as I've said before. After all these years, number 1 set for Melt variation of Ganyu is still 4 pieces of Wanderer's Troop. We'll receive 35% increasage of charged attacks since Ganyu is a bow wielder by the full piece. And apart from that, we'll also get 80 Elemental Mastery, which is required for Melt reaction. Number 2 option is the full set of Gilded Dreams. New set shows itself very well with 80 Elemental Mastery and the increasage of it with the full set ability. Number 3 is a 2-2 combo of Gilded Dreams and Wanderer's Troop. Nothing so unusual, just plus 160 Elemental Mastery. For this upper variation, I would recommend to use Blizzard Strayer or Noblesse Oblige. While we're also here, I would like to discuss the artifact stats that are required for each variation.
And also during montage, I realized that I have made a mistake and wrote substats instead of stats. Please never mind that and proceed with caution.
Hat must go for crit DMG because of the Cryo Resonance, full set of Blizzard Strayer and some crit rate in substats will receive enough of crit rate to satisfy us. Goblet needs to have Cryo DMG bonus and watches need to be for ATK. Now we've got the Melt variation of Ganyu. Depending on how much crit rate or crit damage we receive from the substats of Artifact, we'll have to choose Crown for crit rate or crit damage. Goblet needs to be with Cryo DMG bonus. And we can choose either ATK or Elemental Mastery watches. Remember, pick Elemental Mastery watches only if you have lower than 200 or 250 of your elemental damage. In other cases, pick ATK. And now we're onto the support variation of Ganyu. It is similar to Melt variation of Ganyu, but it has one difference. We can once again choose which stat of watches we can pick for our support Ganyu. This time, however, we can choose between 80k and energy recharge. The second variant can be picked only if you've got less than 140 to 170 energy recharge. A few words also must be said about the order of talent upgrade for each variation. Surprisingly, Freeze Variation and Melt Variation of Ganyu have same priorities while upgrading talents. Firstly, we need to upgrade normal attacks as they will be the main source of our damage. Then we can also upgrade Ultimate as it also deals quite a lot of damage in both variations. And finally, for additional damage you can also upgrade the E button. The support variation, however, has different preferences while upgrading talents. First off, we need to maximize the level of our ultimate. Then we can start upgrading the E button. There is no need whatsoever in upgrading normal attacks in support variation of Ganyu. Here we are at the final stage of our guide. Teammates. Ganyu for sure has a lot of teammates to choose from. We shall have a look at all of them. Let's start off with Bennett. I strongly recommend to use him only in the Melt variation of Ganyu, as in Freeze variation we do not need him to accidentally complete elemental reactions. Now a few words about Yelan. Her ultimate does not work with charged bow shots, meaning that she's simply useless for all the variations of Ganyu. Tinshu is not a good option either, so you can just forget about applying Hydra status by these two. Jean is an incredibly good healer, and we would like to see her in the Freeze variation of Ganyu, because in the Melt variation of Ganyu we need Pyro characters to apply Pyro status. Diona can be used both in Freeze and Melt variation just because she can give out shields and good heal. Kokomi is also a nice healer as she can appear in Freeze variation, because in Melt variation, once again we need Pyro characters. Zhongli can appear in Melt variation mostly, but he can also be put in Freeze variation. However, it will lower the efficiency of the group. Xiangling may only appear in the Melt variation of Ganyu, just because we need Pyro status from her ultimate and Goba. Thoma can be also placed in Melt variation of Ganyu, however only if we don't have Bennett. Kazuha, Venti, and Sucrose can appear in all the three variations. Shenhe is a Cry buffer, so we need her to be in the Freeze variation of Ganyu. She can also be swapped for Azaria or Kaya. Thank you very much for watching this video. Don't forget to leave a like or subscribe to the channel. Good luck to all the Ganyu pullers in 3.0, or if you're a Ganyu puller, then my congratulations. Drax is in the studio and I look forward to seeing you in the future.
Oh, it must be now.